The blueprint, study my movement, more than the 2 cents. Was losing, now I'm oozing with success. Now I got the tools to beat the stress. I lose cause I'm a step ahead of you.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us get into this discussion about NXT. First, we gotta talk about some news and notes. Well, let's do this first. Hit the like button on this video, and for starters, I need more likes, I need more comments. Do you guys want me to do news and notes about NXT before the review or after the review? Most responses I'll move to that format. But I just sometimes I want to do news and notes beforehand. So the news and notes of NXT, of course, is all doom and gloom and negativity ever since William Regal and many others were let go from NXT last week. It's been nothing but doom and gloom ever since. I saw several articles. This was all just a message to Triple H. And I said, well, anybody who knows anything knows that Triple H, what does he need a message for? By the way. Oh, we're taking over. You mean the people who fund the company are taking over the company? Oh, really? They fund it. They have always had a somewhat of a hand in what's going on in NXT. Not a complete and total hand, as we will discuss in a second, but it's not like NXT was doing its own thing and nobody knew what it was going on the whole time. It's just that Vince trusted Triple H to do his thing. We got this developmental program over here. Do your thing, man. Like, oh, you want to start signing them some independent guys? Okay, do your thing. We'll figure it out. And then his thing started costing more money than it was making. And they were like, wait a minute, we got to change your thing. All right. Your thing is going to continue to exist, but we got to scale that thing back. All right. So what they said was all these people who are released, William Regal, Road Dogg, the writers, the other guy, all this kind of stuff. All of these people were released as a message to Triple H. And I was like, and they were replaced with who? Who were they replaced with? From what I saw, most of the writing staff and everybody is still in place. So you released people who were hired by Triple H because you wanted to get rid of all the Triple H guys. But everybody who's still there, all Triple H guys. Does that make sense to you? Why is it all doom and gloom? Everybody who works there was hired by Triple H. So I don't know. The second thing that had came out was that now Bruce Prichard is the head of creative, and Bruce Prichard now presents to us NXT. This is a Bruce Prichard production. And I said to myself, well, Bruce Prichard is the head of creative for Raw and SmackDown already. And makes sense if he's going to be the head of Raw and SmackDown, that he will also have to approve scripts and storylines, etc. for NXT. You just increased his workload. The thing is, Bruce Prichard might be the kind of guy that the more work you give him, the worse it turns out. So sometimes that's how people are. They're perfectly fine. Like Bruce was responsible for some really good stuff. He was, partly responsible for doing a lot of the really good vignettes we remember as a kid. We've all listened to Something to Wrestle with him talking about, when he first started doing vignettes and coming up with character ideas and storylines and all that kind of stuff. But as usual, when you start to pile on the work, the output doesn't come out the right way. It's like, it's okay when he was doing stuff here and there, and then you added a little bit more to it, and it was kind of like, okay, it's still good. But now you're going to dump 3 brands on him? That's the kind of shit that I'm kind of like, wait a minute. Maybe that's not the smartest thing in the world. I don't think that Bruce doesn't write the shows. As far as I know, he's the head of creative. Basically, all he does is approve shit, and that's it. I don't think he's actually in the room writing stuff. And I think people have the wrong idea. They think that these bosses are micromanaging and they're in the room writing scripts. Like Vince McMahon is writing my words, directly. I'm like, maybe, but the likelihood of that is very, very low. Yeah, that would assume he has nothing else better to do with his time, which I'm sure he does when it comes to running a business. I'm sure he has other things to do than to sit back and write verbatim a goddamn Dana Brooke promo. I'm just sure he's not doing that. I'm just sure that he's not. If anything, he's going to go over it and read it because, of course, he has to make sure there's no negativity. There's 100 verbal traps that they got to go through with all the different hoops and they got to jump through. NXT is no different. You got to make sure you're not offending certain people and you're not upsetting other people. But when I watched NXT this episode, I didn't see any weird Bruce Prichard stuff. There was no love triangles and, there was no cuck angles and all that kind of stuff. There was nothing that was too out of the ordinary. It seemed like the people who wrote last week's episode or the week before wrote this one. That's kind of how it felt. And when I saw the wrestling journalists in their response to this, I was saying to myself, this seems very doom and gloomish. I don't care that Bruce Prichard is the head of creative. I already knew that. This is not. They were expecting a car crash, and what they got was a regular ass episode of NXT 2.0, which is usually somewhere between good, pretty good, and train wreck, depending on what's on the screen at what time. So it felt like a regular episode of NXT. It didn't feel like a regular Bruce Prichard debacle. Sure, I don't really care for the work Bruce is doing, but I know Bruce is not likely writing scripts. There's head writers on every brand, and they have to pitch to Bruce, who has to pitch to Vince. So it seems like, or they have to approve things through Bruce before they pitch to Vince, or however that goes. So it's not like Bruce is writing the show. And these people should know that. If they don't know that, then they're fucking idiots. It's not working the way that they think it is. But all that's very serious, and people think Shawn Michaels is not in charge anymore. Bruce is in charge. It's like Bruce is probably not even there. Bruce is probably not there. He probably gets sent an email. Sometimes your boss. I think sometimes people get the wrong idea. They think that WWE is kind of like you going to work at Walmart and every hour or so Vince McMahon just comes and hangs around to look down the aisle and make sure everything is all clean and everything. He's like probably in his office. You didn't go looking for him. He ain't coming looking for you. So it's probably at most you shoot him an email. Hey, this is the script for tonight. And he looks at it, reads it, whatever, and sends it back. Good. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Put a red line through it and that's it. They do as little work as possible. Only when something is really and totally fucked up is the head of creative really going to get his hands dirty and do some stuff. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the need for 1,500 writers. So no, I don't believe that at all. But I am interested in where we're going with this. All right, though. So let's talk about this show. Now that we found out that Triple H's guys were fired and replaced with Triple H's guys, to send him a message. It's not your NXT anymore. It's like they didn't replace him with anybody. It's like imagine if they just said something like, okay, we fired William Regal and we're replacing him with Bob Holly. I would say, wow, that's weird. That's weird. Because that came out of nowhere. But they didn't. They just said we're going to cut down on some of the staff. That's what they said. Okay. They cut down on the staff. They don't need that much staff. They cut a lot of the wrestlers. They don't need that many wrestlers. They're not doing house shows. They're not doing any shows other than this Tuesday show. So what do they need so many wrestlers for? What do they need so many trainers for? It's common sense. Also, big up to Samoa Joe and William Regal for not being dickheads on their way out the door. Road Dogg as well. They all seem to be very professional guys and say, hey, we hate that we don't get to work with the young talent anymore, but WWE fed us for years. Thank them for all the hard work and everything, and on to greener pastures. That's how professionals in a professional organization handle, getting released from their contracts. There's nothing negative about this. When you're changing directions, you change staff. The last thing I'm going to say on this is the NFL, when you look at the NFL and a team is a losing team, And the general managers, the people at the top, they said to themselves, you know what? Our team sucks. We need to change this team. So what are we going to do? Well, for starters, we got to fire the head coach. Head coach got to go. So as soon as the head coach is gone, almost all of his staff is gone. Offensive coordinators, the quarterback's coach, running back coach, all of them gone. And that's, and the NFL does this literally every year. There's a bunch of coaches and trainers and people who are getting completely and totally wiped out every year because this team sucks and we need a better team in here. There's going to be a certain number of players that are going to be cut every year. It's going to be older players, younger players, people who was on the practice team, people who didn't even make the team, people who did make the team but got hurt, people who were, barely on the team, people you didn't even know was on the team, all getting cut. That's how, these things work. The WWE releases, the bad thing about it is that they're doing it piecemeal. Like every 6 weeks they're doing cuts. Instead of doing one big cut and saying, this is what we need, cut, and that's it. Which is what they usually do with the spring cleaning. This last 2 years, because of the damage to their revenue streams, these cuts have been coming progressively. As they've said, okay, we've cut the roster. We don't need as many trainers, cut the staff at the top. And they've been doing this stuff like over and over again. But ultimately, if you compare it to normal sports, this is not abnormal at all. WWE, it just seems abnormal because WWE had so many people. And then you realize that they had so many when they started to cut them. So then you kind of say, okay, well now they had 300 people got fired. If you over 100 and something wrestlers alone. Then when you add in trainers, office staff, writers, board people, not board members, but like executives, all of those people got cut. They fired over 300 people over the course of a year or so. Yeah, when you look at it and you say to them, and you say, what is the damage that the pandemic did to their company? Well, it completely destroyed their ability to travel for a year. And then their developmental was paying sometimes guys, I'm guessing 6 figures, to train in developmental, or at least to be on that show. The Adam Coles, the Tommaso Ciampas, the Pete Dunnes, all those guys, they were making high 5 figures, 6 figures. Well, they only work 1 day a week now. They're not traveling. They're not going anywhere. They're not even doing takeovers anymore. And if they were doing takeovers, they weren't charging tickets for the takeovers. So yes, revenue streams died. So guess what? People lost their jobs. Basic economics. Basic economics. No money coming in. Too much money going out. So guess what? Cut that shit going out. Bunch of people lost their jobs. And it's going to continue. Because NXT still cannot travel. They still cannot go anywhere. They have to run the same shows 1 day a week in this building. Whatever they're charging for tickets to a performance center, like it ain't enough to cover the overhead. So that means they're probably getting floating loans from whatever other departments that they have down there. And it's likely worth it now, So, almost 15 minutes into this video, these things need to be thought about a little bit more than the juicy headlines would lead people to believe. If the NFL was never allowed to cut anybody, you'd have 46-year-old guys with CTE still on the team because we can't get rid of them. It's like, no, you have to be able to get rid of people. I know that we all loved William Regal, but 21 years not long enough? How much longer should he still be there? I don't know. It is what it is, man. It's not an indictment on him as a person, but basically they say, hey, look, we're going in a different direction. I mean, if you're going in a different direction, you can't get new from the old. You can't get new ideas, a fresh approach if you keep the same people in power, or keep the same trainers or whatever. It's partly why WWE is the way it is. And a lot of people say this all the time. Well, things will never change as long as Vince is there. It's like, yeah, and that's the same thing he's saying about NXT. NXT sucked when everybody said it sucked last year. Then why are we keeping the same people in the same places all over again? Why are we keeping William Regal and Road Dogg and all these people there? And when you said that the show that they were putting together and the people that they were training was sucked and it was the shits. You said that. You buried NXT. There's another issue of people making themselves miserable. All right, 15 minutes in. That's way too long. I might use a timestamp in order to skip through this. Anyway, let's talk about the show. Bruce Prichard presents NXT from January the 11th, 2022. Brian Breaker starts the show thanking Tommaso Ciampa, who paid respects to his dear old dad, who he never named, and said that anybody who wants to challenge him, he said, you guys want to train? I've already trained. You want to watch film? I've already watched it. You leave early, I'm staying. And I was like, oh, this guy's really out here. He's really out here killing it. Young Brian Breaker. He's very good. There was a dueling chant of "you deserve it" and "no, you don't," which I think perfectly encapsulates what's been going on with Brian Breaker right now. There's a certain section of the audience who are bought in, who believes that he has it. But there's also that bitter underbelly who is kind of like, it should still be Tommaso Ciampa. It should still be Gargano. It should still be Cole. And they're the ones chanting, "no, you don't." Interesting thing here. As he said that, NXT, there's no days off. There's no bye weeks. You keep going. He was talking about basically putting over the work ethic of all the kids in NXT. What we got from the wrestling journalist was the spin of unsafe working conditions. I'll just let me read this tweet because this is absolutely absurd. It is absurd. I love it when a babyface laws poor working conditions. This is by Cage-Side Seats. We don't get time off, quote unquote, isn't the babyface brag WWE thinks it is from the Daily DDT. Apparently, work ethic is not a babyface thing. The great thing about this is the Imperium promo later, talking about fat, lazy Americans. And then this is the wrestling journalists class who are saying, you guys should definitely get a week off every once in a while. Like, why? Why? They work 1 day a week. 1 day a week. That's too much. That's too much. Are you serious? These people are stupid. Right? These people they'll fuck up a porn scene. I'm telling you, man. They'll fuck up a free blowjob. I hate the wrestling media. I really do. Santos Escobar, he taunted Brian Breaker with his abs. He's like, you looking at my abs, man? I got the abs, man. I like the little showdown between the two of them. Santos Escobar wrestled Zion Quinn for the hand of Elektra Lopez. The same two wrestling media companies were upset about this. It's so ridiculous with the kind of stuff that I'm thinking these two they got to be like sister organizations. So K-Side says it's super weird that this match is essentially for the possession of a woman. Not great. Daily DDT. The fact that this stip is still a thing. It's probably written by women, by the way. If it's not women, then it's definitely, well, what is a woman? In today's modern progressive sense, what is a woman? They're probably women with hairy penises and bearded faces. Let's put it like that. In any event, the stipulation stated that Elektra was leaving with the winner. It was going to be her decision, not the decision of the men. It was her proposition. Apparently, she's not allowed to have agency. Not allowed to make decisions for herself. But then she did make a decision for herself when she kicked Zion Quinn in the butt, even though she had to pretend like it was in the nuts. And Santos Escobar defeated Zion Quinn. The Legado del Fantasma has perfected the art of interfering in matches, where you had one guy distracting the ref, Elektra Lopez kicking him in the balls, Raheem Wild and Raul Mendoza throw the guy back in the ring. Phantom Driver. Santos Escobar wins. Good match. Santos Escobar would make a great opponent for Brian Breaker. That could be very fun. The next feud that we're going to be discussing here is Tony D'Angelo. Tony D'Angelo said there's 16 different ways to use a crowbar, but he's only going to need about 3. And then Pete Dunne is done. He's finished. And he swore all he wanted was a trophy from his victory at War Games. And he was just going to take his mouthpiece. That's all he wanted. But now he's going to take a little bit more out of old Petey Poppins. So the 4th match on the show, Petey Poppins, Pete Dunne versus Tony D'Angelo in a crowbar on a pole match. On a pole. They put it on a pole. Everything's awful. And you put them on poles. The worst thing about this match, the match was good. Tony D'Angelo and Pete Dunne have good chemistry. Pete Dunne is very good at wrestling. The weird thing about this was when they were outside the ring, I wasn't paying attention at first. And then I hear 1, 2. I'm like, there's countouts in this match. Crowbar on a pole. There's countouts in this match. I'm like, why is this match countouts and disqualifications? It's so weird. Tony D'Angelo just threw Pete Dunne to and fro around this joint. It was great. Tony D'Angelo got the crowbar. Pete Dunne ended up with it. He tried to hit him with the crowbar. Tony D'Angelo slid outside the ring, pulled his leg, tripped him. Outside the ring, they tried to redo the forearm, the hand smash with the crowbar, but Pete Dunne escaped it. Then later in the match, Pete Dunne put him in his STF with the crowbar. I thought that was going to be a finish. I was really excited. I was like, wow, Tony D'Angelo is about to lose by submission, but it was going to be a pretty dope submission because it's crowbar in the mouth. Tony D gets to the ropes, grabs the ropes, saves them. Tony D'Angelo then throws Pete Dunne again, pillar to post, whacks him in the face with the crowbar, pins him 1, 2, 3. And I was like, oh my goodness. Man, that was a great finish. That was a badass finish, man. Tony D'Angelo looks great. A lot of the wrestling media tried to brainwash people into thinking that Tony D'Angelo is less over now than he was before. They are wrong, as usual. They're always wrong. Pete Dunne, I know, has been doing dark matches along with Tommaso Ciampa. A lot of people think that, he's done. He's done with NXT. He's getting called up. It's entirely possible. I think the moment Triple H sees Pete Dunne walk into the SmackDown or the Raw locker room, he's going to put his head in his hands and say, oh, my poor baby, what are you doing? What are you going to do, baby? Tommaso Ciampa is intense. They're probably going to make him shave his beard, though, because it's so gray. And it fits the character, but they're going to make him color it or something. They're not going to want him out there looking like some midget hobo, and they're not going to want that. So they're probably going to make him shave his beard. At least shave it down. Or at least color it, you know. But I love Tommaso Ciampa. I really don't want him to go. I don't want him to get fired. And I don't want him to go and be wasted on Raw or SmackDown. I know that he said that NXT is perfect for him because he has those neck injuries. And he doesn't like to travel as much. And that is the one of the guys that they stuck around, that they overused. Let's put it like that. All the indie dorks that they overused. Tommaso Ciampa and Finn Balor are my favorite too, because they had legitimate intensity. And if they only had bigger bodies, they would be top guys. They got everything you need. Gargano, fuck them. Cole, fuck them. O'Reilly, Fish, fuck them. I don't need none of them. Balor and Ciampa were like my two guys. Now, Cole is fun. I can watch Cole. He's fun. He's got a great promo style. If he had a bigger body, he'd be a star anywhere he wanted to go. But he doesn't. He has a small body. So, and then he doesn't work out. So it makes him look even worse. But Ciampa and Balor, despite being small guys, they stay in great shape. They have great intensity. They cut great promos. They look like badass, tough, and small. Even if they're smaller guys, they still look badass and tough. I don't want Ciampa to get put in a position where he has to quit or get forced out. I don't want that. And that's really kind of what it's looking like now. Where it's going to be like, yeah, go run these house shows, Ciampa, with your busted up neck. He's going to be like, I can't do it. Physically, not going to be able to pull it off. And going to have to walk out or something like that. That would fucking suck. You know? It's one thing to cut a guy because we don't need him. It's another thing to cut a guy because he can't fulfill the deal when you still don't need to move him. Like, Ciampa could still stay in NXT and be the in-ring trainer. You know, you need guys like him and Roderick Strong and Santos Escobar and LA Knight. You need them in NXT. Now, Pete Dunne is young, and you may say, look, he's too young to hang around NXT forever. And I'm willing to cut that finger off if that's what we want to do. So if you want to send him to Raw or SmackDown, I'm sure there's a tag team that he can join or something like that. Otherwise, we're going to have to make some moves. We're really going to have to make some moves. But I just don't want Ciampa to go away. That's all. All right, so Mandy Rose has a vignette where she's celebrating her championship win with a photo shoot and then talking up herself. Later, they did another scene for Toxic Attraction where they talked about the thirst for Toxic Attraction at an all-time high. There's no tag team in the world that can touch them. And then the third scene has Kaylee Ray walking around with a baseball bat. And she is looking for Mandy Rose, apparently. And she's told that Mandy Rose had a celebratory photo shoot backstage. And she's like, oh, so Mandy Rose can show up to do photo shoots, but she can't show up to defend the title. And she just starts to break this poor photographer's stuff. She's hitting his cameras. She busting his lamps. She done tore his little back piece thing off. I'm like, poor photographer. He paid a lot of money for that stuff. This doesn't bother Mandy Rose at all. Not only because she already had her picture taken, but also it's not her stuff. So why should she care? You just you pissed off her photographer. I'm guessing that's enough. Maybe. But we're going with Kaylee Ray being the next opponent for Mandy Rose. Okay, that seems to be what she came to NXT for, is to work with Mandy. Kaylee Ray is in the flop house right now. I have no idea where she's going to end up. She's in a bad space. Okay, she's in a bad space. But hopefully this Mandy Rose thing, she can help. You know, this ought to be fun. Ought to be a nice try. So Damon Kemp versus Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes, of course, wins with the cave-in. But Damon Kemp was being under the watchful eye of Bivens, Michael Bivens. Was it Michael Bivens? What's his name? Bivens? I know his name is Bivens. Cameron? No, not Cameron Bivens. I don't know what his name is. Bivens is watching Damon Kemp, as Damon Kemp hit a couple of big suplexes on Cameron Grimes. He got some offense in. He didn't look terrible. Needs some work, obviously. Obviously has some type of athletic background. You can tell. Pretty much everybody we see on NXT now has some type of athletic background. And I love that. You know, I love that we're looking at people who have athletic backgrounds now. Either it's, I know Zion Quinn played rugby. Some of these people play football. Some of them are basketball players. Grayson Waller was an amateur boxer. You know, I love it. You know, it's, you know, people in new positions, learning a new business is fun. So Cameron Grimes wins this match. Later in the show, Cameron Grimes runs into Carmelo Hayes after Carmelo Hayes cuts the hilarious promo with Trick Williams. So Trick Williams is saying, when you have gold, we have gold. And so they go together like peanut butter and jelly, like Shaq and Kobe, like Trick Williams and big booty women. Carmelo Hayes had a moment of silence for Roderick Strong's cruiserweight title run as he poured one out for his ops, and then said he got more accomplishments than he got months in this company. This was a great promo. I love him and Trick together. They're excellent. Of course, Trick is basically trying to steal the scene. He's not trying too hard, but he's hilarious, and he can't help it. You know, like Carmelo is very good, but he's not the natural that Trick Williams is. Trick Williams is so natural with it. He's not even trying. He's still in a lot of the spotlight here. Carmelo Hayes had this 1991 look to him with the Pats jacket and the and the Lokes. Almost like he stepped out of a West Coast rap video. So afterwards, he basically said that, anybody who wants to step up to him for the title, he don't miss. Then he got his little stare down with AJ Styles, nice little tease there. But what they did was they had him come in with a car. He gives his car to the driver, to the valet. He comes back to get the keys from the valet. Found out the keys have been taken. Cameron Grimes had the keys to his car. Cameron Grimes, who promised that this year is now the year for championships, no more goofing around. He told the A champion Carmelo Hayes he's coming after him. And I like that idea. Carmelo Hayes versus Cameron Grimes. Mwah! That's good shit. That's good shit. I like that. That could be really fun. The Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes pairing versus the silliness of Cameron Grimes. That could really work. And it keeps Carmelo Hayes going against people who are seasoned veterans and people who can force him to up his game. I think this is awesome for Carmelo Hayes. I like the tease with AJ Styles. Of course, we want to get there, though, if we ever get there. It's a nice little tease, but I think that Cameron Grimes is a great, great show for him. Cameron Grimes is a great opponent. Joe Gacy came out and was being very creepy, saying that he thanked the tournament officials that him and Harlan get an opportunity to qualify for the Dusty Cup. Glad to see some equal opportunity, and that to Malik Blade and Idris Enofe, that they may be rivals in this match, but they are not rivals in this world. As I said before, we need to have some crazy people on these shows, and we got them. Harlan and Gacy are nuts. Idris Enofe and Malik Blade cuts one of the worst promos I've ever heard, when they talk about, you know what? Bump that, man. Screw these guys, man. We're going to shock the world. We're going to win this tournament. And I'm thinking, like, man, these dudes about to get killed in like 2 minutes. It lasted about 4 minutes. They did get killed, but they won. They won by disqualification because Harlan decided he was going to run his forearm across one of these dudes' heads again and again until he felt better, which never seemed to actually occur. It was great, and Gacy wasn't upset that he lost either. He didn't care. It's the point is to thrash guys, not to actually win matches. There was a Harlan chant that was a brewing, and people were upset that Harlan and Gacy lost. It seems that Harlan and Gacy are kind of wandering aimlessly from thing to thing. They're not really accomplishing much. I did say that they needed to get out of this tournament because if they're not going to win it, they shouldn't be in it. And they did exactly what I said they should do, which is Harlan can get disqualified. That's what they did. So this was smart. They teased Harlan and Gacy being in the match in the tournament, but they took them out. So now they have to find something else to do. That's the bad thing about it. Is now they have to find something else to do. I'm guessing, the character has been derailed with all the complaints, but I really enjoy Harlan and Gacy. I hope they get a damn focus. There has to be something for them to do. So it was announced that Von Wagner was suspended and that he had to pay a fine for attacking fans and starting a riot in the Performance Center. All of that lasted about 40 minutes because he said his suspension was over and his fine was paid. It's like, whatever it is, he didn't learn his lesson. I'm guessing this has something to do with Robert Stone. Just going to make a wild guess. Imperium had a vignette where they said Imperium's about 3 things: was integrity, discipline, and honor. That they work harder than anyone else, and that Imperium doesn't go on vacations, and that they look down upon the unkempt, the uneducated, and the unsophisticated, because they stand for class, elegance, and sophistication. And they basically talked about fat, lazy Americans, and they showed all the fat, lazy Americans sitting on the couch eating cheeseburgers, and one dude was in a hammock sleeping. It was hilarious. I am all about the wrestling Nazis, the wrestling fascists. I'm all about this. This is excellent stuff. This is great shit. This is great shit. Walter's going to come out there and berate people for being fat and lazy. That's fucking rules. All right? You need to clean up yourself. Look at you. Look at the state of you. Look at the state of you. I chop you. Chop. I love Imperium. Look, Bartel is really cool. He sounds like the kind of guy who would say all the stuff in this vignettes, you know? He just looks like that kind of guy. So I love that Imperium is back. They're in full strength on NXT. Take your time with the whole Walter and Braun Breaker thing. I'm saying we need to do that probably in the winter of next year, in the winter later this year. I'm talking maybe December. You know, I'm talking maybe November, Halloween Havoc or something like that. There's no need to rush it. Unless you're talking about snatching Walter and bringing him up to the main roster. In which case, do it as quickly as you can. But I think Walter's probably going to stay in NXT for a little while. So I'm down with Imperium being a solid force. We know Walter's going to get him one of them belts. So it's definitely probably about to be the NXT title. That ought to be fun. That's gonna kick so much ass. I don't know what to do with myself. Imperium having all the belts rules. Well, having the 3 of the 4 belts rules. What else we got? Grayson Waller. So Grayson Waller said that he was destined and desires to be in the main event, and that he mentioned that he might go to SmackDown and start smacking around Roman Reigns and Shinsuke Nakamura and making more Waller moments. Like jumping off the cage at War Games and attacking AJ Styles on Raw. He just has such amazing confidence. It's just so much energy in that guy. He's something else. So AJ Styles versus Grayson Waller was the main event of the evening. And this was a good match. They did a good job really putting Grayson Waller over. And I really bit on at least 1 or 2 of the near falls here. Because I really believe, especially after the Rolling Stunner, I was like, motherfucker, they about to put Grayson Waller over. And I was shocked that he kicked out. I was like, boy, I heard the fabric of all the couches in the United States beginning to crinkle at the same time as AJ Styles was about to be pinned by Grayson Waller. I was about to hear so many no. There were so many people who were so mad, but Waller ends up losing. But they did a good job of putting Grayson Waller over. The calf crusher spot I thought was really good, where Grayson Waller was in the calf crusher and he crawled all the way to the other side of the ring, not to the ropes where he was the closest, which, you know, you would think you would do if you was in that much pain. He crawled 60% on the other side of the ring in order to grab the ropes. He sold it pretty well with his face too, so I like it. You know, this was a fun match. Grayson Waller, I think, met expectations. I'm not sure if he exceeded them, but he met them. AJ Styles did a really good job. They beat Grayson Waller flat with the P1 forearm. Not with a roll-up, not with a small package, not with anything that would protect Grayson Waller. They beat him flat, you know, and I think that's probably the one thing I would complain about. Like, why couldn't, you know, AJ Styles win with like a small package or, you know, a sunset flip? I'm not saying beat him with a sunset flip, but, you know, something like that. A victory roll where he countered a Grayson Waller move or something like that. Really put over how Grayson Waller was good, but he falls short. He's not good enough. Similar to Bret Hart and Steve Austin. That's the kind of finish you needed to have. You needed to have a finish where AJ Styles wins, and he wins clean, but he wins because he uses his experience over Grayson Waller to win, rather than he hit him with his finish like he hits everybody with his finish and beats them, because it makes Grayson Waller look kind of like a job guy. At the same time, Grayson Waller is going to be fine. I like that AJ Styles gave him a little hat tip at the end. He took the microphone, said that, hey, you know, you're good, but you ain't phenomenal. Then he said that he wants to introduce Grayson Waller to one of his friends. And LA Knight comes out there, and Grayson Waller stops selling. He stopped selling the beating that he just took, which was the finish and everything, which he was still selling after the match. You know, believe it or not, he was still selling moves that he took. I know that's a foreign concept to some people, but he was still selling. But when LA Knight's music hit, he stopped selling everything. He started selling LA Knight. so he wanted to run away, and of course he ended up getting beat up in the ring. And LA Knight bumped him and threw him over the top rope. LA Knight had a great reaction. Grayson Waller really sold it with his facial expressions, made it seem like it was a big deal. Everybody was super happy to see LA Knight. He dapped up AJ Styles and shook hands. Everything looked good. Everything ruled. That was some really good shit, man. No complaints out of me with this. I like that. The main event was very good. All right, so Persia Parada, Indy Hartwell, and Wendy Chu defeated Amari Miller, Casey Catanzaro, and Kaden Carter. The one thing I noticed two things before I was really about to go to the bathroom on this because I didn't care. But then I was like, Wendy Chu, she's out there in a pink onesie. She's wearing slippers. She's got a body pillow. And she's wearing a onesie. And she's so small. She is literally one of the tiniest people I've seen in a long time. She was asleep on the turnbuckle. She kept trying to fall asleep in the middle of the match. She kept falling asleep on the ring apron. I don't understand this gimmick outside of she's just very sleepy. And then when she's in the ring, she does almost an Orange Cassidy like. She does all of her shit, where she hits all of her stuff very fast and very fluid. She's much better as Wendy Chu than she was as Mei Ying. She sucked as Mei Ying. And she seemed bigger than she really was as Mei Ying, but she's very small here. So I think Wendy Chu is probably more of the character that she wanted to play. And she seems to have something here. She's not the bad looking little girl. I don't know how old she is, but she's very little. But this wasn't bad. This wasn't bad at all. She was about the same size as Casey Catanzaro, but she's so small. She's very small. Indy Hartwell gets the pin. Cool. She needed a pin. MSK was geeking out over the Dusty Cup and how they're going to beat all the other tag teams. And then the Raven lunatic cat lady of NXT, Dakota Kai, walked up to behind them and said that nothing divides friendships like success. And basically they should, be careful what they wish for. And MSK was like, oh, don't put that evil on us. Don't you do that. We're always going to be together. We're always going to be friends. And I was like, hopefully not. Hopefully not. I'm hoping you're not. Solo Sikoa was taping up his fists. And it said that he got some unfinished business with Boa. He doesn't care which version of Boa shows up. He's going to beat his ass. We get Boa and Solo Sikoa. They go outside the ring and both get counted out. They continue to brawl outside the arena, around the arena, hitting each other with chairs and throwing each other into garbage and getting chased by all the referees and everything. It was really raucous. Then out of nowhere, Boa throws a fireball in Solo Sikoa's face. And that was some crazy, crazy shit. That was some crazy shit. I think he's a little low on the card for throwing fireballs, but that was some wild shit right there, dog. Like, I think we should save fireballs for people who are higher up on the card. But, Boa's got supernatural powers now. Like, he's possessed by a face demon. I don't know what it's called, man. I don't have any idea. I'm not even going to pretend to lie. I think it's the soul of Mei Ying or something like that they told us it was, right? So he threw a fireball. One of the big problems I have with people throwing fireballs is how fireballs are sold these days. Solo Sikoa just rolled around on the ground and was shaking his face. He didn't scream. Like, if you got burned, you would be screaming, howling. You wouldn't be covering your face with your hand, just shaking your face. You would be in a fetal position or something like that. They would have to cover your face with like a towel, or something. We used to do fireballs better than the way we do them now. We used to do fireballs in a far more meaningful way in wrestling than we do them now. And I miss when we used to do fireballs in a more meaningful way. Now they look very cartoonish and very unserious. Like Randy Orton he got fireballs in the face. He wore a weird mask for 1 week and all of a sudden he was okay. And I'm like, no, he should have been in that mask for like a month. I was all in on Punished Randy. I was all in on that. That was fun. We should have stuck to that. But Solo Sikoa getting his face burned. Interesting. I like that they're trying to do something with Boa and Solo Sikoa. So they're not just having matches just to have matches. They're not just feuding for seemingly no reason, even though it does feel like it's seemingly no reason. There seems to be, some legitimate heat here now, no pun intended. So I'm interested in where we're going with this. Bo is a very hard character to get into due to the fact that he doesn't talk that much, and then he doesn't speak clear English. So you find yourself having to. He also doesn't, he doesn't have a lot of sympathy, but he also doesn't have a lot of heat. So you find yourself, playing around with the idea of how do we get heat, how do we get sympathy on this guy. What they came up with is like this split personality thing where he loses control of his own body as he gets possessed by this violent demon thing. And I guess that's supposed to be his way. They could play it up like the Incredible Hulk where he doesn't want to do that stuff and, he's scared of it. And, I thought that's what they were playing with him washing his face over and over again, that he was sort of scared of what he could become and scared of his destiny and what he was going to do. I think that's a common sort of trope for a character like this, is that he has these secret powers, this evil within him, but he doesn't want to tap into it. He's afraid of it. And that's sort of typical for a guy like him. And why aren't we doing that? We should be doing that, right? All right, so that was NXT UK. Not NXT UK, but NXT UK since I mentioned it. Blair Davenport versus Meiko Satomura was very good on NXT the previous week. I don't remember the exact date. It was a very good match. I ended up watching it again. They're setting up Walter's last match on NXT UK. His last match will be against Nathan Fraser. It will actually be this Thursday, which will be, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, it will be tomorrow, January 13th. I don't know the spoilers for that match, but Nathan Fraser has been very good, and this is going to be Walter's last stand in NXT UK, the last match before he moves to the United States on a more permanent basis. So this is cool. NXT UK has some cool shit going on. NXT has some cool shit going on. Brian Breaker cut a hell of a promo. Very believable, very sportsmanlike about training and working hard and work ethic. Regular gym bro stuff, and that gets people amped up and powered up, and you're not going to outwork me. You're not going to kick my ass. I love that shit. Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams come out there. They were funny. They were irreverent. They were charismatic. I love watching those guys. Tony D'Angelo and Santos Escobar had great matches. Fun matches. Tony D'Angelo had a somewhat great match. They went out there and they did their thing. So, it wasn't Grayson Waller, again, met expectations. Wasn't as obviously as good as New Year's Evil, but I think that it wasn't that far of a step down. It was still a very good episode of NXT. They did a poor job of not building up anything for the next week. I don't remember seeing a card for next week, but I'm going to take their word for it. I'm going to trust them on this one. But I've enjoyed NXT. I think they're doing okay. I got no problems with it. Bruce Prichard presents a good episode of NXT, which is all I can ask him for. Hopefully he can work on a good episode of Raw and a good episode of SmackDown. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video. Share this video. Subscribe to the channel. Donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.